Here, let's talk about this. Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper, along with Cliffy D. Hey, Cliff, I think it's fair to say at this juncture, where we are currently on the calendar, and what it is with the CFL situation, I'm going to use an aviation term, but we're currently in a holding pattern, and still in a holding pattern. I guess it just depends on what number we are to lift off. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we're not even taxing on the runway. Like, we are definitely in a holding pattern.
Yeah.
And that's just, there's so many reasons why, but it is what it is. But part of me wants to be positive because it looks like we're finally starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, but at the same time, it's like we're not seeing enough light at the end of the tunnel, or the tunnel it feels like we're looking at the exact same little pinpoint of light, and it's not growing bigger. And it's not getting smaller, but it's not getting bigger either. So, this truly is a holding pattern.
Yeah. And by the way, before we get into it, we have a great interview coming up with Brandon London that we did with him. So the Owls were his only pro team in the CFL. Mm-hmm. And everybody remembers Brandon. What he's doing now is just amazing in television, and his career has gone really, really well. So stay tuned for that. As you were saying, because you're talking about where we currently are, and I think this goes to the fact because we keep hearing things. Everybody, all the talking heads keep making suggestions and stuff like that. And I think we may have talked about it last episode when it came to were the Owls committed to playing? And everything that we've seen so far, and I think it's sort of quick jabs that the team's getting at without actually saying it, is that the team's going to play. Mm-hmm. The team was going to play no matter what. Even it was saying it was Toronto and it was Montreal that were holding it up. Well, there are positive signs everywhere that we are going to play. And I am still, and we'll talk about it in a minute, because our the President Mario Cecchini had an interview through the team that was released, and some of the things that he said is that some of the things that we have brought up, but some of the topics that were mentioned, kind of, I think not. Obviously, we won't find out until the schedule comes out, because that's still in the holding pattern. Mm-hmm. But I think we're almost guaranteed to have our first home game in September.
Mm-hmm. And what's been extremely positive, of course, as you folks throughout Canada know, with the Montreal Canadiens having up to 2,500 fans in the stands at the Bell Centre.
Yep.
And that was the first event in Canada that had, first sporting event in Canada that had actual fans in the stadium or arena, as it were. The fact that went off, I'd say pretty well, all things considered. I mean, we haven't heard anything else since. And as far as this next series versus the Winnipeg Jets, I'm still not sure exactly. I haven't heard too much exactly about how it's going to go, but it sounds like based on the strength of that they're probably going to end up doing the same thing as having another 2,500 fans in the Bell Centre for games 3 and 4. And then we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens after that. But that has been taken as a very positive sign as to the eventuality of the CFL being able to have fans in the stands, because, again, let's not forget the Bell Centre is an enclosed arena versus all 9 teams playing in open-air stadiums. Well, I mean, with the exception of the BC Lions, but of course their roof can open. Yeah. But all this to say that fans in the stands, which has been the big sticking point for the Canadian Football League as far as being able to play in 2021, that was a major hurdle that was cleared by, well, the Montreal Canadiens technically, but at least now you can take a look at that and say, see, we can do this. We are capable of doing this, provided everybody still does what they have to do as far as being vaccinated, wearing masks, all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. That to me was a positive. So I'm hoping that the league took notice of that as well. And even though they've been very hush-hush as far as, well, I mean, everything up until this point as far as the actual getting back to playing in 2021, other than saying we will be playing in 2021, at least now they can sort of take that example with the Montreal Canadiens and put it to practical use.
Right.
Whether or not they do, only time's going to tell. And ideally, they definitely should be having a plan in motion now, like right now, and ideally letting people know what's happening based on government regulations, working with the stadium crews and working with the players and the league and everything like that. By now, as far as I'm concerned, in June, especially when you want to have training camp in July, you may want to get on and, getting everything finalized, getting a new schedule finalized, get everything finalized so that we the fans know what the heck is going on and how we can plan the rest of our year accordingly.
Right. And we'll talk about what was mentioned in this interview, and then we'll move on. But speaking of the schedule itself, I'm under the impression, from what I'm told, that the schedule has been delayed because there are some hiccups with some other teams and dates and and that type of thing. So that may be the entire hiccup for the CFL's revised 14-game schedule. But I guess we say this, watch it be released the day after that we tape this. It always happens. So
well, and that's the blessing and the curse of a podcast, right? Is that the minute we put something out, something that gets actually set in stone, release it to the world, boom. What better way for news to drop than on the heels of a podcast?
Yeah, exactly. So
rendering everything that we've talked about completely obsolete, or sometimes justifying it, but more often than not, just kind of making us look like dummies in the end. But.
So, as I said, the team did an interview with Marchicini, the president, and the first question is one of the things we were just talking about there, Cliff. He says, will there be a return to play this season? And by the way, this is fully the entire video interview is available, I think, in French and in English over at the Montreal Alouettes website. But the answer to that question is the news is encouraging all around Canada, including in Ontario, which was not the case a few weeks ago. What is also encouraging is that the vaccination campaign, which is well underway in Quebec, and with the objective set by the Legault government for the end of August, it leaves us even more optimistic to hold our first home game at the beginning of September, that was my speculation. By the way, as I said before, that was my speculation that we were going to have our first home game in September. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of September at the latest. The newest calendar for the season should be unveiled shortly. The vaccination is the key to all this. So for those who have not gotten their vaccine yet, now is the time to do so. And with the Quebec government announcing today the calendar for how people can now move up to get their second dose, they changed it from 16 weeks to 8 weeks from your first one, all through June. By the end of June, everybody 12 and up will have the option, if they want to reschedule and get their second vaccine quicker. So,
which essentially means that everybody could be fully vaccinated well before this first September home game, which
it's possible, yeah,
bodes extremely well, especially if they do decide to say that, okay, if you want to attend a CFL game, you have to be fully vaccinated. That way you can say, yes, I am 100%. And if you got to wear masks, then fine. If you still have to wear masks, then great, still wear masks.
I've already said, you know what? I will probably wear a mask the entire season.
Sure.
I think that will be me. That will be me.
And I'm sure you're not going to be the only one if that's what they mandate. Like, I mean, to me,
I think they will.
As I've said from essentially from Jump Street right away, the one thing I've said is, you tell me what I need to do to be able to watch a live football game, and I'll do it. I mean, as it stands right now, I don't see anything that would. I haven't seen anything that would make me say, no, I'm not doing that. Like, you just, like I said, if I have to be vaccinated, still have to wear a mask. Even after being vaccinated, I still have to do this, and this. Just tell me what I need to do.
Yeah, you still need to. You still need to wear a mask, because still you technically still can get it, and you still can't give it, even if you're asymptomatic. So,
right, and if we can't, like, for example, you and I can't sit together in our section, if we have to be a few seats down or a few rows down or something like that, so be it. If that's how it has to be, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of fans, it was posed to him, a minimum of fans requested in the stands in order to play. He says there's not a precise number required for now. The Quebec government currently mentions a limit of 2,500, which we were talking about before, in stadiums until August 31st. But once again, Logically, this limit should increase based on the improvement of the situation. Once again, our goal, shared by everyone, is to be on the field in 2021. On top of that, who will have priority in the case of limited capacity of spectators in the stadium in 2021? Definitely our season ticket holders. If a limit of fans is imposed in the stadium this year, they will have priority. This number will be decided by the government. So far so good. So we'll see. From here, something that we have brought up before, Cliff, and it makes me wonder if this was asked, if there have been more. I don't know where. Anyway, the question is, it was basically the importance having Quebec players on the roster. I know you have mentioned this before. I know we have sometimes questioned the amount. It's not necessarily where you're from, but how good you are, that type of thing when it comes to Canadians. Mm-hmm. Very good answer, though, because our general manager has repeated over and over again that the best football pool in the country is Quebec. When talent is equal, the local talent will be given priority. We also want to give them the chance and opportunity to play in front of their people. We are Quebec's team, and on top of that, our name is associated to one of Quebec's pride, that being the 1st French-Canadian Squadron. But in the end, the success of the team will be on everyone's shoulders. All the players, no matter where they come from or their native language. What are your thoughts when you hear that? Because I know, as I said, we talked about it last episode when we were talking with Eric Delorier about who has been drafted and stuff like that. But when you hear Mario say that, do you feel that does it sound like the team is getting questioned for how many Quebecers that they're drafting?
I'm sure they've received tons of questions. I mean, it's undeniable that this past year alone, the team had 5 draft picks, and they were all of them were of Francophone nature. I think 4 of them were actually born in Quebec. Mm-hmm. The 5th one being in Orleans, Ontario, which is considered Franco-Ontario in some aspects. So I mean, like
I would call Castleman more Franco-Ontario than Orleans.
Agreed.
But
when you're talking about Eastern Ontario, typically it is considered Franco-Ontario.
Hawkesbury. Hawkesbury, even more so. Actually, I think they're probably on the same level. Hawkesbury and Castleman are on the same level.
Yeah, if you told me that Chris Fournier, who was the draft pick that was from Orleans, if you told me he was from Hawkesbury or Castleman, which are predominantly francophone cities within Ontario.
Yep, right. And by the way, for those who don't know, literally, Hawkesbury is right over the Quebec border. Literally right over the Quebec border from Grenville sur la Rouge. And Castleman is the first. It's the first city after the Quebec-Ontario border heading towards Ottawa.
Well, first major city.
Sorry, major city. Well, enough so that you're able to get off in it. It's like it was built to be for people to get off so they can go eat or whatever. You know what I mean? So, but
yeah,
either way, I digress.
It's essentially a truck stop. Let's not get ourselves.
I think Castleman. I call it my Castleman more than a truck stop. But sorry, I digress. Go continue.
Great way to veer away from it. But yes, all this to say that yes, the immediate narrative with the Alouettes is it's going to be all French players or it's all going to be Quebec players. I'm like, okay. I can see where a lot of people would see that upon first look, but at the end of the day, as I said, talent is what matters. Like you look at the players that were drafted, and they are very talented players. Yes. Look at the players that have been signed by the Alouettes that are either francophone or from Quebec.
Yes,
and they're talented.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Like there is a lot of very talented football players, and if you were to ask other players on the roster, including our quarterback Vernon Adams Jr., how many times has he said in interviews recently that this team is loaded, this team is stacked with talent? I'm like, yes, and I'm sure he's not just referring to his receivers who are American or his running back who's American. I think he's referring to the entire team, which is a blend of American, Canadian, English, French, black, white. There's a very diverse team in the sense that there is definitely a lot of talent. At the end of the day, talent wins out, and that's what it comes down to. Is that there's a lot of very talented Quebecers who play football
in the CFL. Really, a lot.
Yep, and there's a lot of very talented Quebecers who play in the NFL. So obviously the thought is, holy crap, Quebec can really produce some good football players.
We can, yeah.
Some of them do end up going down south, unfortunately. Some of them do end up staying up north and playing in Canada. And you know what? If Montreal is smart enough to foster and sign all of these teams or all these Quebec-born players, which again, everybody else has the right to draft and sign too as they please. There's no law that says, oh no, sorry, if you're from Quebec, you can only be drafted or signed by the Alouettes. Sorry. No, it's not like that at all. You can sign these players are talented enough to play on any football team.
No,
if you don't want to sign them, that's on you.
And,
the Alouettes.
And by the way, I maybe we're here because they feel that they're getting slack because of how many. Yes, if you think about it, Danny Machocha had a great relationship. He brought up a lot of these guys when he was the head coach and essentially general manager at UDM. Mm-hmm. So it's completely understandable. I mean, we didn't hear if there was any backlash from the Elk drafting a player from University of Alberta. We didn't hear anything when the Riders drafted somebody from
Saskatchewan.
From University of Saskatchewan. So it shouldn't really matter because it is football. You draft for talent. The CFL draft, as we know, as we mentioned last show, is different. It's usually futures, but still, if you look at the history of Quebecers in the CFL, they've been ever since the French football university teams have come into prominence. Quebec has been a hotbed for players in the CFL and just players in general.
Mm-hmm. And it's been like the past 5 years has been mostly Quebec teams in the Vanier Cup, whether winning it or losing it. But the University of Laval or University of Montreal, they've been in the mix. That's just that just speaks to good football programs being able to recruit properly and helping develop these players into becoming honest to goodness professional football players, whether they apply their trade down south or in the CFL for any of the 9 teams there. Quebec is without question one of the best football factories, and it has been for the past 20 years at least. Yeah.
So, and even to me, to this day, how dominant they've been in Quebec. I'm sorry, but the Rougeours are the team to hate.
Well, that's it, and that's the team that's been most closely associated with being run as though they were an NCAA team. Like as far as scouting goes, and you talk to any of the scouts that are down in the States, they will talk about how Laval is run essentially like an NCAA team.
Well, it's all French. It's all the French universities. Unfortunately, it's because Concordia, because McGill, because Bishops, Bishops is not in the Quebec League anymore for football, but still.
Right.
Sherbrooke, UDM, Laval, the way that they were brought up, as you said, with all the boosters and all the recruiting, they have figured it out. As you said, they're basically run like a pro team. They really are.
Yep.
Or as you said, the great analogy is run by like an NCAA team.
Yeah, and when you're scouting football, regardless of whatever league it is, that's one thing you're going to take a look at is just how is this organization run? How is this university preparing its football players, not just for on the field, but also off the field as well? And the one thing that you hear over and over again is just how good of a football player you've got, but also how well developed an athlete and how well developed a academic player are these guys in Quebec. Yeah. And that's one thing that the one takeaway that they've gotten a lot is it's extremely comparable to what you see in programs down in the States. And if you're an NFL scout and the fact that you're willing to come all the way up to Quebec to take a look at a player, you're not just going up there for the fun. You're not going up there for the puts in, that's for sure. Yeah. You want to go to see who's this stud that they found. And sure enough, look at the players that have been signed and are going to be playing in the NFL. The fact that our first draft pick this year, Pierre-Olivier Lestage, he's been getting rave reviews by the Seattle Seahawks from their coaching staff. And this is a team that is desperately needing an O-lineman. So I applaud the Alouettes for being able to draft and retain his rights, but at the same time, I don't think this guy's going to come here for a good while. And so be it. I mean, I guess that's the way you have to look at it is, okay, well, eventually he may come here and we'll be ready for him, but I'm looking at it what I've seen so far, and even though it's early, even though it's just OTAs that are going on right now in NFL camps, It's just, I just don't see this guy playing for the Alouettes anytime soon.
Yeah.
Definitely not this year. I would definitely say this year, forget about it.
Yeah.
Next year, maybe, but from everything I'm hearing, like I think Pierre-Olivier Lestage could be a Seattle Seahawk for at least a couple of years, anyways.
Yeah. Last question that was mentioned is like it was brought up was about it's been 21 months without playing. It says how the players manage. He goes, the players are professionals. And they did everything in their power to stay in shape. Look what Vernon Adams did just recently. We mentioned that before. Mm-hmm. The good thing about the situation is that the guys will be well rested following this long interruption. Their bodies may not be as tired, and those who had injuries will have recovered. On top of that, our medical team and trainers have been in regular contact with the players to make sure that they'll be ready for training camp. So, interesting information. I said it's not. I'm sure it's a lot of information that we have heard already, but it just goes to show you they, no matter what we're hearing from the talking heads, the Owls have been one of the teams that are ready to play. Mm-hmm. So
certainly sounds like they're a team that's ready to play and itching to play and desperate to play, and that wants it bad enough. Like not just the players, but we're talking about like the administration and the owners and like it sounds like everybody that's associated with Montreal Alouettes. They sound like they really want to play football in 2021.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, these reporters, I mean, like I understand, the clout won't chase itself, as I always say, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, you're saying this, that they're saying nay, but it sounds a lot like they're saying yay. So I'm not saying you're a liar, but maybe you don't quite have all your facts on this. Like,
sometimes insiders are not necessarily insiders. They're quote unquote insiders. Mm-hmm. Anyways,
I know, and as I've always said too, like there's three sides to a story: your side of the story, my side of the story, and usually somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Yeah. When we get back after speaking with Brandon Lennon, talk about a couple of things that have popped up recently, some cool stuff when it comes to additions at the boutique, additions for us, do I dare say YouTube, and a lot more. So we'll be right back. On the line with us now is a gentleman who spent a short time with the Montreal Alouettes during his football career. But you know what? Hey, he was as long as it was with the Owls because we were his only CFL team. On the line with us now, upcoming television star, or hopefully star, Brandon London. Hey, Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Guys, thanks for having me on, man. Anytime I get an opportunity to show love to CFL, its fans, podcast, media, like I'm all about it because you guys are the ones that gave me my start. So, thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. Now, hey, what I wanted to know first out of the gate is obviously when you had a short career in the NFL, obviously a time with the Giants, the Dolphins, and my Pittsburgh Steelers. That's cool, actually. Yeah. When you were released by the Steelers off their practice squad, or what? How did you hear about the CFL, and what got you interested in coming up here?
So I already knew about the CFL because the Alouettes used to come to our practices. They had a scout that used to come there all the time. I believe it was Joey Abrams that used to scout us before he was like assistant general manager and stuff. He used to come. And I don't know if you guys remember when Shannon James and Karan Williams ended up being on the Alouettes together. So we all played together at UMass. So Jim Pop told me I'd been on their board or the neg list for quite some time, and they just wanted to see how my NFL career was going to go. So when I got released by the Dolphins after playing with them for a year, I sat out an entire year of the NFL, trying to get on, I had a couple workouts, but I didn't get signed. So Jim Pop called me late in the CFL season and was like, hey, I understand you want to give the NFL thing another shot, but you're on our neg list. You're someone we've been tracking since college. And how about this? You don't know much about the CFL. How about we fly you up for the Eastern Conference Finals? And that's when they played BC in the Olympic Stadium. So I went up for that game. They blew BC out, smashed them. But they took me out that night, and I was hanging with Karan and those guys, and I met met Jay Rich and all them, and it was just something where it was it changed my it changed my perception about the NFL. I mean, about the CFL, because when you're American and you don't know much about that league, you kind of look at it as a demotion in a sense, because we grow up, our dreams is to get to the NFL, to make it in the NFL, have a strong career in the NFL. So when people are like, oh, I went to the CFL and all, you don't know much about the league, you look at it as kind of, I didn't make it in that sense. So when I went up there and I saw, 55,000 people in Olympic Stadium, and I got to hang out with the team, and I was, they brought me behind the scenes because Jim Pop was like, we really want you up here. We want you, we're going to show you everything about the CFL, everything about the Alouettes, So I left that visit thinking in the back of my head, like, you know what? Things don't work out for whatever reason. I know I have a home. I know I have a place to go play professional football. So that time when I tried to make the team with the Steelers and all, they drafted Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders. They brought back Antoine Randall. They brought in Arnaz Battle. It was kind of like a uphill battle I was facing in that sense. So when I got released, the UFL was going on. And I'm thinking like, oh, why don't I stay in the NFL? I had a UFL workout with Hartford somebody, forget their names.
The Colonials.
But they didn't, the Colonials. But they didn't sign me. And I was kind of like, I was glad because I was like, I don't want to play in the UFL. So when Kerry Watkins got hurt against Winnipeg one night, I remember because it was CFL on Friday night TV on ESPN, and I'm watching with some of my friends. We're just watching the game. Like, yo, the Alouettes are playing. Kerry Watkins got hurt, and I told my friends, I told some of my best friends, I go, yo, I bet you I get a call within the next day or two. And I was kind of joking around, but I was kind of semi-serious. A day or two later, Jim Pop called me and was like, it's time. And I was like, I'm ready to go. And the Alouettes were doing a bye week that week. And I went up there, man. They flew me up there, got up there, met Darren Diedrich, met Emmanuel, I forget his last name. They had me show me around and stuff. I stayed in the Candlewood, right off of Rene Levesque, where all the players stay when they used to come up there. Mm-hmm. And we had those practices that week. And I wish I could cuss. I just effing dominated throughout practices those weeks. I remember Mark Trestman telling Jay Rich and SJ to watch out for me because he thought I was going to be this whole cocky, brash individual up there because I dominated that first practice. And after that first practice, when I went and hung out with the receivers and they knew like, okay, this kid's for real. That's when I fell in love and was like, you know what? I've got a career up here. I can make a career of this place.
That's. I mean, was there anything that you had to get, because you'd seen the game, you hadn't played it that much, but what was, for you as a football player who basically playing 50-yard football, what was the biggest adjustment for you when it came to the Canadian game?
The Waggle. Dude, I was so ass at the Waggle. Because you're already running full speed, and then there's someone trying to jam you at the line, like press man. In the States, like you're used to just, you're already there. You're already stationary. Mm-hmm. But then you go and you're like, Jay Rich and SJ really had to, and Brian Bratton, they really had to teach me the Waggle when I first got there because I was so awkward. So it was weird to me. It was like, yo, I'm already like almost full speed. And then I got to navigate through someone trying to press me. And then I got to get to my depth. And then break, it was very awkward when I first started. So I think the biggest thing was the Waggle. And then the second, I think that extra defender, 12 guys instead of 11, you're so used to identifying coverages to where it's like, all right, it's, two high safeties, middle of the field, open or closed. But in the CFL, you can have two high safeties and you can have a third safety in the middle. So it kind of, reading coverages and all and what we wanted to do, that kind of threw me off at first. But, when you play with a guy like Anthony Cadillo, you got Kerry Watkins around, he was hurt, but he was still around. You're playing with professionals like Brian Bratton, Chanel Richardson. They break it down to you. And Jim Pop kind of told me already, you ain't playing this year. He's like, that's 6 weeks. We're not going to play you, really. I played the second half of the last game of the season versus Toronto, but they're like, you're going to play. We're going to put you in IR, and then you'll come back next year, and then you can compete, and you can do, you can show why we brought you up here. But for that 6 weeks left in the season, and then the playoffs, I was doing practice squad stuff. I was dominating and having fun getting adjusted to the game.
That's cool.
Was there any other learning curves that you had to figure out while you're in that 6 weeks of practice squad time?
Yeah, how to get to Olympic Stadium on the Montreal Metro line. It was like, usually you go to a place, it's like half and half English, half whatever the native language is. That Montreal, it was so hard to navigate through there from time to time. I got so lost in the beginning, but I think the second part of having is the rules. Because remember that year, the year I came in, remember it was that crazy, we won a game that year through some it was like a ruse, but then they kicked it out, but then they kicked it back in.
Oh yeah, the game in Toronto. The game in Toronto.
The game in Toronto, and I'm sitting there like, is this soccer or is this football? Why is everybody picking up the ball and just kicking it to the other side? I had no clue, but we were at it was called like All-Star Cafe or All-Star Bar, right off of St. Catherine. And I was watching it with a bunch of the practice squad guys and, IR guys. And we're watching that game, and the Canadian guys, they knew what was going on. So they're like, oh, but so you're trying to follow their excitement on what's going, 1 second you're like, oh, and the next thing you're like, oh, and you're like, oh, and I'm like, am I supposed to cheer? Or he kicked it, but he kicked it it was, the rules, because when you're playing, when you're in the game and you're suited up, you better know anything and everything about the rules, because you need to use it to your advantage. You never want to be that guy that took the knee in the end zone with the ball instead of kicking it out when, your team's down your team's down or something, or the team you're playing you're tied. And if you take a knee, they get that point. So I think I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the rules, and Tressman was a rule guy. So it was always homework and stuff that would get quizzed on. And, Coach Brady, Marcus Brady at that time, I come in, do quizzes, and I'm like, man, I feel like high school all over again, man. Is this the SATs? But the rules was something I had to get adjusted. You
guys never did I'm trying to remember, and Cliff, you could help me too. You never were a part of one of the other unique aspects of the Canadian game where you were on side and then the punter punted the ball and you could go down and try to recover the ball. Were you ever a part of that rule at all?
Yeah, I did that against Winnipeg one year. Cause I was that guy. Me and Chip Cox would be our gunners. And there was one year, I think it was a field goal. They tried to do it. They tried to make it into a jump ball situation. And I think Sean Whitey kicked a hell of a ball, and I dropped it or something. I just remember everyone being like, bro, we worked on it all week. It was something that we had it down. We knew Winnipeg was going to do, they were going to play X. They were going to do this, and I messed it up. So, I think when it comes to coaching, the Tressman era was absolutely phenomenal. Tom Higgins brought in some decent coaches. The Dan Hawkins thing was a shit show. But
we'll agree with you.
When it comes to the coaching and understanding the game, I think Mark Tressman did a great job breaking down the game to the players, especially the new American players.
Oh yeah. Being that you have been a part of all these strange quirks that we love in this Canadian game, does it help? Does it now, when you're talking about the game to other people, other players that who are thinking about where they might want to go if it's not going to the NFL, because you've lived it, are you able to give them basically a good reference on the CFL?
Oh, absolutely, man. I think I'm a bigger ambassador of the CFL than The Rock, than Dwayne Johnson. And because he always tells the story about I played with Calgary and then I got cut and all that. I didn't get cut. I never got cut when I was up there. I got a chance to get 4 solid years of football in the Canadian Football League. I knew what it was like to be on TSN. I knew what it was like to be on TSN Sports Center Top 10 highlights. I knew what it's like to go to Toronto, play a game, stay in the Radisson right at the field, and then go out to Moxie and go out to, Trist and those bars and stuff with the players after the game. I got the full Canadian experience. So when I tell American, I do stuff with the New York Giants. Yeah. So when one of the players that I've been cool with reaches out to me and is like, hey, my NFL career is kind of done. What do you think about Canada? I am the first person to be like, go up there. If you still want to play professional football, you want to feel like a professional. You want to even feel like, you want to feel like you matter. Go play in Canada, because the fans up there, they treat you. If you're Jamel Richardson up there, remember the year Jay Rich almost had 2,000 yards receiving.
Yeah,
he was Odell. He was Odell. He got Odell treatment up there. We would go out to eat, rock star treatment out there. Hanging with Cavillo. Going to his functions, his foundation functions. You see how people treat you up there. And that's when you play professional ball, yeah, it's about the love of the game. Yeah, I play it for the love of the game. But you want some admiration as well. And the Canadian football gave me all that. It gave me access to so much while I was up there. I kind of look back and I wish Montreal, the city, was in Toronto, because Toronto had so much going media-wise, and that's where I wanted to go into. I couldn't do EDS because I couldn't speak French or anything, but the people, Matt Ross and Mo Khan at TSN, they gave me my start on the radio show because me and Mo Khan has become really good friends. Mo knew I wanted to do TV, but I needed reps. I needed to learn the business. So I tell the players who may end up going up there, don't think of it like, I have to go to Canada. Don't disrespect my league like that. You be proud that you're going up to Canada. And if you ball out, they're going to show you love. And you're going to get a chance to go back to the States. But you can build a career up there, and you can have a great time up there. So I think I'm the CFL's biggest brand ambassador.
There you go. I mean, if that's not an infomercial, if you will, just a chance to really sell the CFL to any prospective American, whether it's a viewer, a player, broadcaster, what have you. Like, that's the best way, as far as I'm concerned, as to how to sell the CFL to someone who's kind of on the fence or not too sure. There you go. That's the blueprint right there, my man.
Yeah. Brandon, when you look at your time with the Alouettes, officially 2011 to 2014, what are you going to remember the most? Because as you're saying, you had Dan Hawkins, you had Mark Trestman, but you also, in that time also, you had one of the goats of the CFL, Anthony Calvillo, retires. So you went through a whole slew of emotions in that short period of time that you're in Montreal. What are you going to remember the most?
I think on my deathbed, the number one CFL moment highlight that pops up would be... No, because I'm not trying to make it about like partying or anything like that. I'm really trying to think I think it would be I think so. The 2012 season, when I had my best season up there before I had that knee injury, and all, I think my moment I would take away was gaining and earning and commanding the respect of my teammates. And when I got it, it was a feeling like no other. Because that season, that 2011 season, I was a Z receiver out to the field. Jay Rich was having his year, SJ, and those guys were already established. So 2012 came in, Jay Rich got hurt, and that was a year where Trestman was really feeding me the ball. But I came up that year, and I was calling myself Wavy, off of a rapper called Max B. His name's Max B. He's incarcerated right now in the States. He's super awesome. So when I got up that preseason, I was talking all types of trash to everybody. And a coach will call me Brandon. I'm like, no, call me Wavy. I made sure everybody called me Wavy because I was just cooking. I was on a mission. We used to play against Winnipeg. And remember when they had Hefney, Johnny Sears Jr., Javon Johnson? They had those guys and Alex Stuber. We used to battle against those guys. So one of my good friends, one of my really best friends from college, Brendan Collier, played for Winnipeg at that time. He was a D lineman. And he told me that Paul LaPolice had me on the board or something, their little like board in the locker room, where I was like, call me wavy, or I'm dominating this or that or whatever. And he was telling me how they're like, yo, y'all better stop this guy. He better not be on Sports Center talking this the next day and all that stuff. I think that moment right there when my boy told me that means it's one thing when you get respect from your peers, but when you know other people in the league are starting to plan for you and you got that, you've earned that bullseye on your back, I think that moment right there is what I'll take right there. Because like I said, guys go up there thinking, oh, I'm going to CFL. I'm going to have 1,000,000 yards and 1,000,000 catches. Like, nah, bruh. It doesn't happen like that. These guys can play too. They're just a little shorter than the NFL corner, or, you know, that they're just someone maybe a little slower than one of those freaks in the NFL. So to gain that type of respect throughout the league that year, that was my thing. I'll take that. I'll take that to the grave for sure.
That's cool. Being that you were on the team at the time that AC went down, I haven't had a chance to talk to many players and ask about this, but what were your feelings when you saw AC go down with the concussion that basically ended his career?
I mean, seeing a legend like that go down, like, it hurt, man. Like, it hurt really, because one, you're like, wait, who's going to be the quarterback that's coming in for him? Two, you're like, you know, this guy he's been a staple in this league. This guy. Yeah, I don't think people understand, like, people don't understand quarterback play, on how there can be a drop off in quarterback play when, like, a great goes down or a great doesn't play anymore. So when that happened, like, you're sitting there, you're like, wait a minute, this is the guy who helped me get adjusted to this league. This is the guy who, if I was partying too much or something, he'd pull me to the side and be like, Belun, lock in, focus up, I need you. You know what I'm saying? He always looked out for me. And even, remember, he was my receiver coach in 2015 during the preseason when I retired.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to Tom Higgins first. I went to Ace after that practice, and I was like, Ace, I don't got it anymore, you know. And he understood it, and he was the one that was like, let's go talk to Coach Higgins, you know. And then after that, he was like, let's go talk to Pop, you know. So when he went down, not knowing that we were going to have that moment later on in my life, when he went down, I felt like I personally lost a legend, you know, not only for teammate, but friendship, or someone who's just going to look after you, period. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
it hurt. It hurt us all, bro. It hurt us all.
No, it's definitely never easy losing someone like that. And then everything else that sort of ensued afterwards, because you went through a number of quarterbacks for the rest of your time with the Alouettes. You went through a good, I'd say, 5 or 6 quarterbacks as they're trying to find the next AC. In your opinion, like, of the players, of the quarterbacks that you had at that time, who do you think could have been the closest to, potential wise? Who do you think could have been the closest to coming to an AC level?
To an AC level, respectfully, no one, man. Like, we're talking about Anthony Calvillo. We're talking about when he broke the record. Brett Favre, Dan Marino was on the Jumbotron congratulating that guy. And when I say no one, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone that I play with, because people can be like, oh, Brandon London was no Milt Seaton, was no G-Roy. I'm just saying, like, we weren't going to see that. Who I thought could have, like, taken the Alouettes to another level. I thought Crompton, man. I thought my boy Jay Cromp, he really came in with a lot of confidence, man. He wasn't hyped, you know, like, he wasn't the one that came in was, like, overly hyped or anything. He came in and, you know, he played well. I wish Alouettes never got rid of Ricky Santos, though, because I used to play against Ricky Santos in college when he was at New Hampshire. I think that if Santos didn't have to play behind Calvillo, he would have had a shot to be like Bo Levi Mitchell, to, like, really show what he can do. I feel like, you know, Santos, but playing with a guy like Tanner Marsh, playing with Crompton, man, those guys were you can tell they wanted it, you know. So when you play with guys like that, you're so excited to be involved, you know, with guys like that. But just when you lose a legend like that, man, it's hard to replace a legend,
It's so true. And you'd be amazed, Brandon, how many quarterbacks basically withered and died waiting for AC to step aside or just go down because so many guys were left holding the clipboard. And that was all they could do. Guys like, if you believe this, Cliff Kingsbury and Jesse Palmer are former Montreal Alouettes that at one point had backed up AC.
Yeah, man. People don't understand. Like, most people don't understand. It's like, yo, you're playing behind a legend. You got to wait your turn. And like you said, like if you don't make some sort of business decision or career move to move on from an Alouette to a Winnipeg or whoever needed a quarterback or go to a place where you can compete, you're not going to get that job. You're just going to be, like you said, you're just going to wither your career away. Or you just do second and goal or fourth and one quarterback sneaks like Adrian McPherson, So, playing behind the guys that play behind a legend like that, I'm sure they learned a lot, especially with having an AC and a Mark Trestman. But I feel like those guys should have left the Alouettes and went on somewhere else with that knowledge and that confidence. I think they would have been beasts.
Now, in March of 2013, Brandon, the Owls signed you to a 3-year contract extension, but you never got to actually complete that extension. Cliff and I wanted to know, because in June 4th of 2015, you announced your retirement from the CFL. Knowing that you had 2 years left on this contract of yours, what made you decide to say, you know what, Montreal, I've had fun, but I'm going to be moving on?
Honestly, man, I haven't really said this out loud in public. I signed that deal knowing I was already checked out, because that 2012 season, when I think I averaged 19.6 yards per catch. I think I was 140 yards away from 1,000 yards. We still had 4 games left and the playoffs. That's the moment when I keep this moment. I'm going to have this, when I get a man cave, I'm going to frame that moment when I'm down against Toronto, because I hit that Ball guy. I forget his first name, but he went down to play with the Saints and all. Lance Ball, Marcus Ball, whatever. You know that linebacker? He used to wear number 6, light-skinned guy with the dreads.
Marcus
Cavillo
Ball,
was
right.
scrambling. Cavillo was scrambling, and I went and hit him so Cavillo could get the first down, and that's when I bucket tore my meniscus. And right there, I tried to get up, and I threw my helmet down because my knee had locked, and I couldn't get up. And I knew my season was done right there. That's the moment I checked out of the CFL. Not gonna lie, because I was so set that I was going to wherever Trestman was gonna go. I was going, because remember he went to the Bears the next year or whatever.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So wherever Trest was going, I was gonna Aaron Rodgers hold out my rest of my deal to get me out of my contract to go to the States to go with Trest. I was a Trest guy, so that moment right there changed my football career forever. And you guys know I'm a coach's kid. Yeah. I grew up on the sideline. Yeah. My dad, I was Boston College. When my dad was at Boston College, I was the ball boy. I was hanging out with Edgerrin James and Ken Dorsey, because I was the ball boy on the other side, on the opponent side. So I got to see great growing up. I got to work out with greats. I got to catch passes from people who went on to live life. Football has been my life my entire career. And I knew I wanted to get back to the NFL to try it again. And when that happened and my season was over, that's when I checked out. So so what happened was I went after surgery. I would have to go to the stadium to get physical therapy with the trainers, and I couldn't go to practice. Remember, we used to take that bus from Olympic Stadium all the way to St. Leonard or whatever.
Yep.
I wonder. So it's like, yo, why would I go? I'm like, why would I go out to practice? I can't do anything. I can't rehab on the sideline. I'm in a freaking knee brace. I went to Trestman, and I go, Coach, I come in, I do my PT. I'm never late. I go hard. Instead of me going to practice and sitting in the stands, can I enroll in Montreal School of Performing Arts? I want to start taking acting classes. Didn't even finish my sentence. He said, do it. Didn't even finish my sentence. Said, do it. So that off season, I went to New York And I signed that deal telling myself I got 2 years and then I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get into TV because once you, as an athlete, you ask any athlete on here, and as you guys continue with this podcast, ask athletes, like, tell them when the game left your body, when you don't have that love for the game anymore, you can't fake it anymore, Cliff. Like, you can't fake that anymore. Like, you can't go through training camp, your body sore is I don't know, like sore as heck, and you're like, I hate this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that can't be in your head. That can't be in your head. So the next season, my rehab didn't go as well as I wanted. When I came back 2014, and I wasn't as good. I wasn't as sharp. I remember we signed Jeff Tisdale. Tiz was locking me up all during training camp. And they were like, yo, he took the wavy away from wavy. Like, I remember that. But I still fought through it that year. And that's when Deron Carter came and took my shine. Like, everybody said, yo, Deron Carter came and destroyed wavy. Like, people were like, you know, because I didn't play that much that year. And they were letting Deron was playing well that year. So it was like that. It was, you feel it. You felt it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you knew when it was time. So I'm just glad that I was able to, like, be able to do Montreal School of Performing Arts and then move to LA in my off seasons, move to New York, model or keep modeling and do this, do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was a fortunate one, bro. Yeah. I was fortunate.
It's funny. It's almost as if what happened to you getting hurt was almost like we were talking about it before the podcast. That was your Dwayne Johnson moment. You know, he was with the CFL for a little bit. He gets cut. You get hurt, but yeah, it ends up leading to bigger and better things for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know it. The end game, it led to bigger and better things. But I wanted at least even if I went down to the NFL and got cut. Trestman was like, "No, we'll cut you from the Bears." I still wanted a strong 3 seasons in the CFL.
Right.
I'm a competitor, like, you know, and we were having these new DBs coming up in the league, like the dudes from Ottawa. You know, we get into it with the guys from Ottawa, and then we had Corey Banks and those guys out in, Dante Marsh out in BC. You know, and I wanted to compete against them, not only like 100% body wise, but 100% mentally. And it's like when you check out from the game, you just it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's like the fire.
It's not the same, man.
It's like the fire just goes out, like blowing out a candle. It's just
man. It's crazy, man. Like, I never thought that I was being a coach's kid. I always, and my sister plays women's professional football, so everyone in the family, and then my younger sister, she's an athletic trainer, in college, So we grew up where it's like, this is my life. You know what I'm saying? So to be like, yo, I want to walk away from this. I cried, bro. I cried. You feel like you lost your best friend. You feel like you lost the love of your life. And you're looking at it like, why don't you love me no more? Like, why would I get hurt? If I'm having the best season of my career, why would I get hurt? Like, how? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're sitting there on the ground, and I'm crying in the locker room. SJ came up to me. Brian Bratton came up to me. They were all there. And it was like, I'm asking SJ. I don't know. He'll remember this. I'm like, why? What did I do, bro? I'm like, what did I do? It was crazy, man. It was crazy. But at that moment, it's like Space Jam when all your powers just leave your body.
Yeah.
It's a feeling that unless you've been there and you've done it, you can imagine what it's like, but you just can't really truly understand and appreciate that sort of sentiment unless you've actually lived that.
Yeah, but I think we all feel it in life, I think we all have something. I just look at football. Football is like a microcosm of what actually goes down in life in that sense. We all have that locker room, that community per se, in the sense of we got our, whether it's work friends or we got our community to where it's whatever it is we're involved in that makes us feel alive. I just happen to get paid for it, So that thing where it's like, I can't do this, whether it's something athletically or whatever, like, I can't do this anymore because my body, my mind, or I got to move, or even finances doesn't allow me to do this anymore. But I effing love it so much. When you got to walk away from that, that shit hurts, man. And I know, I don't want to say like regular people, but people who haven't played professional sport, I know they feel the same thing, man. Like it sucks, man. That feeling sucks.
Now, talking about feelings, let's talk about, like, we talked about the lowest of the lows, but let's talk about the highest of the highs. And for you, it had to be the distinction of being one of the few players at the time to have both a Super Bowl ring and a Grey Cup ring. Talk to us about that championship feeling on both sides of the equator, if you will.
Oh man, like it's something where, I always, when people tell me, oh, you got a Super Bowl ring, you got a Grey Cup ring, me, humbly, I always say I didn't play in either game, like the CFL one, the Grey Cup was 2010. I came up there, like I said, Jim Pop was like, you ain't playing this year, bro. We hiding you. And then the Giants thing was, I was on the practice roster, so I didn't play in the game. But both, I feel a part of it. I feel like I earned it both, because with the Giants, I had to be Randy Moss, T.O., Donald Driver. I had to be the number one receiver of whoever it is that we were going against. And I had to go against Corey Webster, Sam Madison, R.W. McQuarters. I had to go against that defense every day. So when we won, there's a story I tell all the time. When the Giants, 2007, Corey Webster jumped that route on Donald Driver, and he picked off Brett Favre's last throw as a Packer. We had worked that route all week. We worked that formation. And the Tuesday, I caught that ball on him. He slapped his hands like, oh, I knew it. I got to get that. And he slapped me on the butt and was like, good catch, B. London. That Friday, he played me even closer, and I still caught it. But then that Sunday, they ran it early. That Sunday against Green Bay, they ran that same play earlier in the game. Brett Favre went somewhere else. But C-Dub, or Webby, I call him Webby. Webby was like, I was all over it. Fourth quarter, he threw it. Webby picked it. I went out with the DBs, and you know what? You can play this, so I won't give I won't give everything that happened that night. The DBs had a huge party that night. Let's just say that. It was called DB night. Aaron Ross, Kevin Dockery, R-Dub, they had a party. They invited me to DB night. And they were like, because you got us ready each week, B. London, every week you came to play. You came to get us ready. That felt so good. Even when I see Webby, even when I see Doc, see R-Dub, Jabril Wilson, they still, to this day, when we're all around talking, telling stories about that year, they could be like, Strahan had this sack, or OC had this monster game. And, and it comes to B. London, they'd be like, one thing about B. London, that boy, he was going to run. He was going to get us ready because I was going to compete, man. So even though I didn't play in that actual Super Bowl game, when that deep ball to Randy Moss went incomplete, I stormed the field like I scored the winning touchdown, because I'm like, yo, I was Randy Moss these 2 weeks. I ran all these routes. They were on Randy all week and all. I caught this ball. Randy didn't catch that ball. You feel like you're a part of something, man. And that's the thing, man. That's the thing. And I think people need to one thing, I do all the fan stuff with the Giants. And one thing I tell them, it's like, before you go shit on somebody and be like, oh, he was a bum, he was a this, he was a this. Before you go talk about that person, just know it's not going to hurt them, because that person had experiences that they're going to take for a lifetime. I'm going to tell my kids when I have kids, I'm going to tell my kids, grandkids, and all that about these experiences, And even that troll can be like, oh, you didn't play. What do you mean you got a Super Bowl ring? My Super Bowl ring is still real. It's the same ring Strahan got. If Strahan puts his ring up on Good Morning America, I'll put my ring up on Daily Blast Live. What? Same carrots, same everything. His number's on there, my number's on there, It's just a feeling, Cliff. Guys, it's a feeling you can't take away. You would never be able to erase those memories out of my mind unless, God willing, I hope I never get dementia or anything, but you'd never be able to erase those memories.
Yeah.
Now, what about being part of the team that effectively ended the perfect season for Tom Brady and the Patriots?
Yeah, man, I felt like you feel part of that. Like I said, I was Randy Moss. What, week 16? You know, remember that deep ball he caught to like the game winner week 16 to beat us.
Yep.
I caught that. I caught that doing practice too. You know, like I did it. You know, I did it too. And I understand. You know, Allen Iverson voice practice. We talk about practice, but it was what people don't understand. Like there's 53 on the roster, right? And then back then there was only 8 practice squad. I know that practice squad's been bumped up now, but if you're a practice squad guy, people don't understand, like you're like a behind the scenes. You're like a PA in TV. You're a production assistant. You run, go get the call. Like I had to go get the donuts for the receivers. I had to do all that. But I was coming out of UMass, man. Like, you know, like even Victor Cruz, his rookie year, you know, like well, he balled out, but he had to go on IR. But you know, you coming from a school like that, you got to catch up. These dudes, they've been at the Alabamas and the Ole Misses. You got to catch up. So the fact that I stuck around, I was the only practice squad guy that stuck around with the Giants that entire year. Only 3 undrafted free agents stuck around the entire year. 2 played, 2 made the team, and I was the only practice squad guy. I don't think people understand, like, if you got an ankle injury, you're down for a day, you're cut. They're bringing somebody else in. So to me, it showed I got a chance to show I'm durable. I can run. I can play and coach. I am willing to learn. Teach me everything. I used to sit in offensive line meetings. I want to learn blitzes. Eli in the meetings would talk about, hey, if we see this, you got to do this, you got to do that. I didn't know what the freak he was talking about. My offense in college, it was just like, throw it to this guy, run the ball. So now you got to run hots and sights and blitzes. I took advantage of all that, yo. I took advantage of all that. I'll never look back and be like, I wish I did this or I wish I didn't do that. Nah, I took advantage of it all. They show love.
That's what it's all about, being a student of the game and learning your craft.
Tell us about how you got into TV, and as I said at the beginning of the podcast, how are you looking to become that star that everybody knows your name?
Montreal School of Performing Arts, man. Like I said, when I got hurt, I had already done some modeling when I was with the Giants, and then when I was playing with the Dolphins, Bill Parcells, he ended all of that. There was a huge on the Miami Herald, because I walked BET Ritter one way. They had a huge picture of me modeling, and Bill Parcells and Tony Sperano, rest in peace, TS, called me to the office and was like, And I remember vividly, Bill Parcells goes, "Who are you trying to be, T.O.?" And I was like, and from there, the modeling was done. I'm like, man, no more blue steel, no more pictures, no more high cheekbones, none of that. So, so it was that bug was always in me because it got planted in me when I was in New York, you know?
Yeah.
So when I got hurt in Canada, I was like, you know, I've done modeling, I've done national campaigns as a model, done a little commercial here or there. Let me see what else is out there. So I did that. You know, you move to LA, you move to New York, you get around people. I started taking classes and all that, and that bug hit me. So in 2015, when I retired, the day before I was supposed to go to Montreal, and I remember because I have an Instagram post. You guys go back to June of that year. Look at my Instagram. There's a post with me with all my bags packed, and the caption is like, "Getting ready for the Great Migration." You know, we're migrating north. It was time. I got called by this show in Hollywood. It was like, "Hey, we saw your reel, and everything on my reel was from what I shot in Montreal. I used to shoot my own web series, Jersey Off, Suit Off, with Jersey On, Suit Off, with Darren Diedrich was my camera guy. My teammates would be my camera and audio guys. But spending that time in LA and New York, I had to brand myself. I had to do something. You know, I created Cultured Athlete when I was hurt, sitting in a special teams meeting, sitting right next to Billy Parker. And Billy Parker's looking at my notebook, and he's like, "Belon, pay attention." I'm like, "Why I got to pay attention? I'm not playing. I'm hurt." Why did I have to pay attention? So I'm doodling and I'm drawing things. I'm like, cultured athlete. And he goes, yeah, that's dope. That's dope. So I ran with it from there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I went out to LA to test, and I missed the first 2-3 days of camp because the network wanted me to test for the show. So they flew me out to Montreal. That entire week, all I'm thinking about is TV because it was my first taste of like a big time production. Ultimately, they didn't, they were like, oh, you're green, maybe come back in a year, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, whatever. But then they called my manager, my agent manager, and was like, hey, we really like Brandon. We'll bring him in on a developmental deal, And it's like, we'll bring him in. We'll try and work with him on teleprompter and all because I struggled on prompter. And they're like, if he gets ready, we'll sign him. So, but this happened after I retired.
Yeah.
So here's the story. So I'm not going to say who, but we were smoking weed out in Sherbrooke one night after practice. We smoking, I'm high as I don't know what, bro. I get back to the dorm room. I'm laying down, and this is a true story. I'm laying down. I see a white flash in my eyes. I hear a voice that says, it's over. And I start crying. And I'm sitting there like, this is some strong-ass Canada weed, boy, because I am gone right now. I'm like, what is going on? But I'm crying. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Wake up the next morning, go through my normal routine, go to breakfast and all, go down, get tape, go to practice. We had the two-a-days. That's when we had the back-to-back two-a-days.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that, Cliff? You have a practice, 10 minutes, get some oranges, and then go back out to practice again. I had a two-a-day. I had like 10, 11 catches that day. Practice ends. We're stretching down. I start crying when we're stretching down. I start crying. I'm like, what the freak is going on with me? Like, what the is going on right now? Crying. That same voice said it's over. And I'm like, wait, what? It's like I kid y'all not, and I wasn't high because we just did 2 practices. Yo, I went to Ace. I pulled him to the side. The receivers were walking off the field. I went to Ace. I'm like, yo, Ace, I can't do it no more, man. Like, I'm done. He's like, wait, what? Like, everybody's like, yo, you just had like 10 catches. Like, what are you doing? You just had a great practice, 2 practices. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. Like, I'm done. So he's like, let's go talk to Tom. Went to Tom. Tom tried to give me that whole spiel. Blah, blah, blah. So then they were like, go talk to Pop. I went to Pop, and Pop set me down like a man because Pop has always treated me like a man. Pop, even to this day, will reach out to me. I see him when he comes to the Giants. Pop has always been like the big homie to me, man. Like, I love that guy. Pop was like, look, this is what we're doing. I'll give you the night off. Come to me tomorrow morning. Tell me what you feel. That night, I called everybody, called friends, called my agent. I'm like, no, I still got some football in me. I still think I can do it, blah, blah, blah. But my agent was like, yo, LA is, this show is talking like, if you come out here, it's not a guarantee, but there's a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do it, man. I had to do it. I walked away from 6 figures to go and fall on my face. I didn't even get picked up by that show. I went like, it was the worst. It was like the worst year of my life in the sense of what you could have done compared to, bro, I was having to like do workout classes. I was having to do all these odd jobs to make it in LA. But one odd job led me. So I was training like in Malibu at a place called Drive Cardio. And there's like high clientele. I was training people. I did a class on a Sunday, and this woman came up to me and was like, you have this great personality. I heard you say you play professional football and you TV now. Like, send me your reel. I'll send it over to Babette Perry of Innovative Artists. She's a really good friend of mine. And if she likes you, maybe she takes the meeting. If she doesn't, then, I tried. But, good luck. I was like, all right, sent her my reel. It was all Montreal stuff. There was no professional anything on it. It was all me interviewing teammates at Joverse or fashion shows or doing stuff, because I modeled when I was up there in in Montreal with Lauro and Co. You guys should check that place out too in Little Italy, Lauro and Co. So they took the meeting, and then I went and they signed me. A month later, I got the Giants gig because my agent was best friends with the executive producer of Giants TV, and they were like, "Oh, we remember Brandon from rookie year. Like he always had all this personality. Bring him in. Let's bring him in and let's see if he can, let's see what he can do." And my thing, the reason why I wasn't getting jobs, the reason why I didn't get Hollywood Today Live was because I couldn't read prompter, yo. Like I've questioned myself a million times, like, can you read? Are you illiterate? Because that prompter was destroying me at times. But then during that year when I was like, it was the worst year of my life because I was putting so much money into getting media coaching. I was getting so much media coach. I was doubling up on classes per week. And I was spending like $1,000 on classes per week, $4,000 a month on classes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and prompter readings and all that. So when I got to that Giants gig, I killed it. And I got signed by the Giants. Life changed since then. So it's funny how the Giants gave me my football start and they gave me my TV start. So when I tell all the guys who are like, yo, I got to go up to the CFL, blah, 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 don't come to me and be like, oh, don't come to me whining like you got to go to the CFL. You better embrace that stuff, because if you don't go up there and not only take advantage of it, then just go back to the States and like, just go do what you do, bro. Because up there, people up there are trying to make money for their families, man. People up there are living that dream. They're gone up there they take that great migration, as we call it, to live their dream. Don't disrespect my league like that, because that league gave me Montreal School of Performing Arts, the Montreal Alouettes, gave me my start for life after. And if you're not thinking big picture, don't go up there. That's what I say. So that's the story, man. You know, it may not be as sexy as Dwayne Johnson's story, and I know, he's richer than me, but if the CFL and the XFL do some sort of collaboration, I better be a part of that, because I feel like bro, it's funny, but I feel like I'm a story. I'm a CFL success story.
Yep.
Not just football wise, but just life, man.
Yep.
Like I'm trying to teach these kids life. Football is just a short period of your life. You gotta, like, while you're up there, learn some stuff. Learn some, like, eat the poutine. Like, try some stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, get out of your comfort zone and go live life.
Cool.
So I guess what I'm taking from this more than anything else is you can read a defense, but you can't read a teleprompter.
No, I used to not be able to read a teleprompter. Now I read it with my eyes closed now. But back then, oh my gosh, I was terrible. But now with all the practice, all the live shows we do, like, yeah, prompter's nothing, though. Prompter's nothing. But, you got to confront your problems, right?
Yeah,
you got to confront your weaknesses. Same thing as football.
Brandon, can't thank you enough for being a part of this. So loved hearing these stories. We got to get you back on again. And yes, if the CFL and XFL do a collaboration, you definitely have to be a part of it, my man.
Absolutely. And Cliff, man, like you've been a down one since day one, man. Like, I don't think you understand, like, the support that you show players. I don't think you understand what that means to us, bro. Like, I don't think you understand that. So when the next generation comes in, the next Alouette comes in, like, keep showing that love, man. Like, some may be like, who is this guy? Blah, blah, blah. That guy, man. Like, but a lot of us would text you back. A lot of us will DM you back and all, because we understand you were right there at training camp practices, regular season practices, games. You had your jersey on. You had your pop belly. Like, you ain't done a sit-up since 2003, but you're there, bro. Like, you're one of those people that make us feel. You're one of those people that make us feel worse leaving our family for 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Y'all keep this shit going, man. No way I'll let the CFL die, bro.
All right, all day, every day, my man.
All day, every day, man.
I like talking to Brandon. I don't think I had talked to Brandon since he was with the team, but it was actually good to hear his thoughts and how he reacted to some of the things that he was talking about. So it's it's really cool to talk to an Alouettes alumni and get to hear their point of what their career is like.
Absolutely. And man, he's had quite the journey as far as being a football player goes. I mean, like, to go from being a Super Bowl champion with the Super Bowl winning team in the New York Giants to going into a Grey Cup winning championship with the Alouettes. I mean, it's been a heck of a ride for him. And to see what he's been doing outside of football after he decided to call it a career, outstanding. I mean, the dude's just killing it. And sooner or later, you're going to see him in Hollywood and really become a massive star. I mean, all in due time. And I know things have kind of slowed down a little bit as far as the CFL, XFL talks go. But if there did ever happen to be a merger one of these days, Brandon London would have to be like one of the faces, if you will, like whether it be an analyst or a host or something like that. You could definitely see him killing that role as well. So again, we can't thank Brandon enough for coming on to the flight deck and joining us. It was an absolute blast chatting with him. Miss the guy. I miss when he comes to Montreal and hangs and all that. But Brandon, thanks again for joining us on the flight deck. You're definitely welcome back anytime you want. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you do more football stuff, even if it does happen to be down in the States.
Yeah. Couple quick things. One of the things that I've been wanting to do for a while, finally set up a YouTube page for us on YouTube. We don't have the YouTube /Alouettes Flightdeck yet. You will have to go through our links page over at alouettesflightdeck.ca, or you can just do a search. You can do a search. But we put up the first video that we put up was the interview that Cliff and I did while we were standing underneath the stands at Percival Molson at 2019 training camp. It's if you didn't hear it when we first did it, make sure you go back and listen to it, because even Vernon commented about it, talking about where he was to where he ended up now. So it's a good listen. But we hope to have more interviews on there from the past, and then obviously we're going to have full episodes of the Flight Deck also available over on YouTube.
Yeah, that just opens up so many possibilities. I mean, going like YouTube Live and some of the other things that we've talked about wanting to do, like, for example, being on the flight deck of the Alouettes plane and doing a show from there. I mean, I can see us streaming that onto.
That's happening.
See, and what better way to do that? Like, that's the kind of thing you have to put on YouTube. So, I mean, folks, if you get a chance, like Tim said, look for Alouettes Flight Deck on YouTube, subscribe, give us a like if you can. Like, same idea as what we do here with the podcast. I mean, like, there's definitely plenty of ways to listen to the podcast. And now if you want to go into the whole YouTube thing, I mean, like, this is something that I'm really excited about us being able to do, especially as the season gets underway. I mean, like, there's so many possibilities for us to really explore this avenue, and we'd really like you folks to come on board with us for that. And
also, my thought is, we were talking about it at the beginning of the show about, ramping up and what the team seems to be doing when it comes to starting up the season. With the Alouettes having the Alouettes boutique having available where season ticket holders can go pick up, you can go pick up your gift, your 2020-2021 season ticket gift. They've added some new swag to their boutique, and even though it may not be currently open to the public, you can still go over to the website, boutique.montrealalouettes.com, and check out the new stuff. And obviously, if you're a season ticket holder, you have that extra discount burning a hole in your pocket. You might as well go ahead and use it because they seem to be adding stuff ever so often. So make sure you support local support for them over at the boutique. And if you happen to go there to pick your stuff up, let Joni know that Tim or Cliff from the Alouettes Flight Deck said hey.
Absolutely.
Also, just a quick plug itself too. So many plugs for the. We have some new merch, which we've gotten some great feedback on over at our merchandise store, which is at teespring.com/stores/Owls Flight Deck. Just the other night, it was nice to hear Andrew over at the Turf District podcast give us basically a shout out for our merch and stuff like that. So hey, if they can notice it, so can you. So if you want to rep the podcast in any way, including, and Cliff, I don't know if you've seen it, you can now get, if you want to have a toast with us, you can now get your very own Alouettes Flight Deck pint.
I mean, what better way to be, especially too, if the first few games, if we're going to have to watch them at home, why not pour yourself a tall, frosty beverage inside an Alouettes Flight Deck logo pint? I mean, how gorgeous is it, first and foremost? And second of all, what better way to enjoy Alouettes football if you still have to watch it at home, which it sounds like we're more than likely going to have to be for at least the first couple of games of the season, is watching the games because they'll be out on the road out in Western Canada. If that's truly the case, what better way to watch the Alouettes play than enjoying a tall frosty beverage or two from your new Alouettes Flight Deck pint glass? Mm-hmm. It looks beautiful. I'm looking forward to actually seeing it in person. Like, I mean, it's just, folks, this is the time. Like, check out our merch. We got some great stuff on there. I think we will probably scare up another promo code or two before it's all said and done.
Oh, but, for sure. With the season coming up, I can see one in the horizon.
There you go. So, I mean, get on that, folks. We've even had a few listeners message us, say that they've ordered stuff off the website. We definitely appreciate it. I mean, it's just being able to see the Alouettes Flight Deck logo all over, like throughout United States and Canada. It's such a trip. It's so cool to see. And we definitely appreciate each and every one of you that's supporting the Flight Deck with buying the merch. So, folks, if you have a chance, like if you don't want to go to the Alouettes and order their stuff, feel free to come over to our site and order as well. Yeah. But order from everybody. I mean, like Tim said, support local businesses. Exactly. Like, that's really what it comes down to is, we definitely appreciate each and every one of you listening to the Flight Deck. And if you want to support our merch, we give you all the props in the world for that.
Yeah. And lastly, we talked about the giveaway that we're going to do if we can get our Twitter account up to 600 followers. I'm going to put the same thing out for our YouTube page. If you can get our YouTube page up to 100, which will allow us to be able to have that youtube.com/ I would say Alouettes Flight Deck, we will also give away something. So if we reach both goals, good. 2 things will be given away. But for each, if you can get us up to 100 on 100 on YouTube or 600 on Twitter, 2 giveaways.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly. So, folks, whatever you like. If you like us, tell a friend. That's really what it comes down to, is get the word out. Help us get the word out and get people subscribed, get them following, everything like that. Like, let's spread the word and help us. Like I said, we definitely appreciate it. And if you don't like us, well, why have you been listening the whole time? I mean, we appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah. We had some. It's funny. Not much. We seem to have. What seems to be our team is in place, but the Alouettes have made some roster moves as of late, haven't they, Cliff?
They have signing draft picks, which is always a good thing, because that's the sign. If you're signing draft picks, that means the training camp is imminent. So that's how I'm taking it. And the Alouettes were able to get 2 of their recent draft picks signed. That would be kicker David Cote, mm-hmm. and also defensive back or linebacker. Defensive player, we'll just say, because I think this kid can play just about anywhere on defense. Ethan Maconzo. I'm really excited to see him play, because I've seen him and his brother play football, and they're both outstanding athletes. David Cote, of course, has been one of the more prolific and accurate kickers in the RESQ. So it makes sense that the Alouettes were going to draft both of these players when the opportunity came. And the fact that now they've been able to put pen to paper for both of them is very exciting. Between that and a couple of the other players that have been signed already, like I said, guys that are going to the NFL, obviously they're not going to be signed by the Alouettes, but the Alouettes are smart enough to get the players that they know will be playing in Canada under contract. Definitely a good thing. So, I mean, like, we got a lot of talent on this team, and my God, I'm just so excited to see what training camp is going to hold for this. And it really, truly does sound like a training camp is going to happen. Not entirely sure where, still not entirely sure when, but I mean, if the league and the Alouettes themselves are saying a football season is going to happen, I mean, I'm choosing to look at the positive and saying, okay, it's going to happen. I mean, details would be nice, but I guess all in due time, I suppose.
Yeah.
But details would be nice. I'm just putting that out there, just kind of speaking it to an existence. Details would be nice.
Yeah.
If you're listening, CFL, Alouettes,
check any of your podcast aggregates. You can find us almost anywhere. Again, head over to our new YouTube channel. Just do a search currently for the Alouettes Flightdeck, and it will pop up. And if you want to listen to any former episodes, you can head over to alouettesflightdeck.ca. But keep an eye on our social medias for anything coming up when it comes to the schedule or anything new like that, because we got a couple of things up our sleeves, and we're going to be we're looking forward to bringing them to you over the next couple of weeks and months,
especially as the season ramps up. And again, I'm choosing to err on I'm cautious, but at the same time also choosing to be optimistic. Like, just as we said before, like seeing 2,500 fans at the Bell Center for a playoff hockey game tells me that there will be football played. There will be fans in the stands. May not be as many as we'd like, but you know what? At least things are starting to move in the right direction. And I just hope, as long as everybody keeps doing what they need to do, as long as the government realizes just that we are capable of doing what needs to be done, I think we'll eventually be rewarded for it. And in this case, the reward's going to be watching the Alouettes play at Percival Molson Stadium this year.
Exactly. For Cliffy and myself, we hope to be back very soon. Check us out on Twitter. Cliff is at Cliffy D. I'm at Repacked. And we'll talk to you soon. So everybody here at the Alouettes Flightdeck, for Cliff, I'm Tim Capper. Run, final approach.